From last-minute dinners to midnight snacks, boxed macaroni and cheese is a lifelong comfort food, even if you know it's not good for you. But some choices are unhealthier than others. These are 11 of the worst offenders. Considering the fact that each serving of Quaker macaroni with creamy white cheddar flavor requires 4 tablespoons of butter and a quarter cup of 2% milk, you can probably guess that saturated fat is the biggest issue. Once prepared, a single serving of this macaroni and cheese contains an eye-popping 12 grams of saturated fat, about 60% of the amount you're supposed to eat in an entire day. And that's if you just stick to one serving. But realistically, how often do you actually stretch one box into 2.5 servings?
Oh, macaroni and cheese. We gotta make this.
Fat aside, you'll also find 420 calories, 50 grams of carbohydrates, and 690 milligrams of sodium. In comparison, it also contains just 2 grams of fiber, which means you're unlikely to feel satisfied for long after you eat. More fiber would help to slow down the rate at which your body digests the 50 grams of carbs in each serving, in turn stabilizing your blood sugar and preventing that familiar post-carb crash. Let's start with the silver lining here. Velveeta shells and cheese somehow manages to be both creamy and cheesy without requiring any actual butter or milk. Instead, it just calls for water to boil the shells, with the iconic Velveeta cheese sauce then applied directly to the pasta after draining. No extra dairy additions means the amount of saturated fat in each serving, 3.5 grams, is actually relatively low compared to other entries on this list. That's it for the silver lining though, because we're not quite as keen on the rest of Velveeta shells and cheese's nutritional profile. A single serving of this macaroni and cheese contains a whopping 880 milligrams of sodium. That's 37% of your daily recommended intake gone in just 1/3 of a box. There's 2 grams of fiber, if that counts for anything, so you run the risk of feeling hungry again not long after you consumed 1/3 of your sodium allowance.
I'm still hungry.
If you want to hack this macaroni and cheese into something a little more nutritionally impressive, try pairing it with a side of carrots, broccoli, cauliflower, or another veggie rich in fiber, which will help you feel full for longer. You don't have to love Kraft mac and cheese, but you can't deny its icon status. Back in 1937, this was the OG boxed macaroni and cheese, picking up steam among American consumers thanks to its low cost, 19 cents to be precise, and maximum efficiency. According to the Smithsonian, a single box promised to make a meal for 4 in 9 minutes. It costs a little bit more than 19 cents over 8 decades later, but it's still a pretty affordable and convenient meal option. Back in 2015, Kraft quietly gave its macaroni and cheese range an overhaul, which rid it of all artificial flavors, preservatives, and dyes. That means the usual offenders, Yellow 5 and Yellow 6, no longer appear in any of its blue-boxed pasta.
Objection! Unhealthy!
She's right. The Kraft 3-cheese mac and cheese lands a spot on our list of the unhealthiest macaroni and cheese out there. Once prepared with the suggested amount of butter and milk, each serving contains 750 milligrams of sodium, 1/3 of your daily recommended intake, and well over the maximum of 600 milligrams recommended per meal to limit its impact on your blood pressure. Then there's the 4 grams of saturated fat. The fiber count is also disappointingly low at just 1 gram. In 2023, Cabot combined 2 classic flavors to create something that's equal parts monster and masterpiece, depending who you ask: Guinness cracked black pepper macaroni and cheese. While it doesn't contain any actual alcohol, this macaroni and cheese has a malty taste just like the popular stout that complements Cabot's famously sharp cheddar.
Here's your Guinness.
Guinness? That's my favorite.
Love it or hate it, this unique macaroni and cheese is definitely best enjoyed as an occasional indulgence. Each serving contains 4.5 grams of saturated fat and 1,200 milligrams of sodium, 52% of your daily recommended intake. That's a truly mind-blowing amount of sodium. For context, although the FDA suggests that we should consume a maximum of 2,300 milligrams per day, the American Heart Association wants us to move towards a cap of 1,500 milligrams to tackle high blood pressure and heart health. Needless to say, the Guinness cracked black pepper macaroni and cheese is best avoided for those who already fall into the danger zone for either of these conditions, and probably even those who don't. As far as value goes, this macaroni and cheese truly is great. What isn't quite as great is its nutritional profile, which leaves a lot to be desired. Once prepared with the recommended 4 tablespoons of butter and half cup of 2% milk, a single serving contains 410 calories and 4 grams of saturated fat.
Oh man, they do have a lot of saturated fat.
Again, the most concerning thing here is the sheer amount of salt you're consuming every time you eat great value thick and creamy macaroni and cheese. At 690 milligrams, you'll be eating up 30% of your sodium allowance in a matter of minutes. While sugar content typically isn't your biggest concern when you're eating macaroni and cheese, it's worth noting that each serving also contains 10 grams of the sweet stuff too. To give it some credit, there are no artificial flavors, synthetic colors, or preservatives at play here, but that's pretty tough to appreciate given the circumstances. First things first, no, this has absolutely zero connection to the food served in Cracker Barrel restaurants. The cheese brand known as Cracker Barrel was founded by Kraft in 1954, 15 years before anyone set foot in the restaurant of the same name. One thing the pair do have in common is their proclivity for fat and salt, with the Cracker Barrel sharp white cheddar mac and cheese coming up high in both departments.
No thank you. Too much salt.
It's the sodium that stands out most, with an astonishing 820 milligrams in each serving. Marginally better, and we mean very, very marginally, is the regular sharp cheddar variety, which contains 780 milligrams. However, the downside is the increase in saturated fat. The regular sharp cheddar option contains 4.5 grams of saturated fat, which is 1 gram more than the white cheddar. Whatever variety you go for, you can rest easy or uneasy, knowing that they're both equally disappointing on the fiber front, with just 1 gram to help your body process all those carbs. Cheeseburgers tend to be unhealthy, and so does macaroni and cheese, so is it any surprise that their love child is also unhealthy? Unlike most macaroni and cheese, which usually requires just water, or at the most milk and butter to complete the recipe, Hamburger Helper Pasta Cheeseburger Macaroni asks for you to mix in an entire pound of lean ground beef during the preparation process.
He's leaking Hamburger Helper!
The finished result is a glorious mix of cheese and beef that, sadly, your body probably won't enjoy as much as your taste buds. One serving contains 40% of your daily recommended amount of sodium, plus 23% of your daily cholesterol values. The fiber situation is particularly dire, with less than 1 gram per serving. What's more, the ingredients list also raises a few alarm bells thanks to the inclusion of 4 different artificial colors. This lineup includes the infamous Yellow 5, aka tartrazine, and Yellow 6. Studies suggest that both are damaging to our cells and potentially contaminated with carcinogenic substances. Tartrazine in particular has also been linked to hyperactivity and behavioral changes in children. All in all, it's definitely not an ingredient that would appear on any nutritionist's wish list. Don't make the mistake of reading broccoli and defining this as a health food. While Velveeta broccoli shells and cheese does indeed contain dried broccoli, it barely amounts to more than a sprinkle of seasoning. In fact, it places second to last on the ingredients list, which tells you everything you need to know about the ratio of green stuff to cheese. The rest of the box is bulked out with ingredients such as milk, cheese culture, oil, and salt. A lot of salt. One serving of this macaroni and cheese contains more sodium than any meal needs at a mind-blowing 1,130 milligrams. In other words, half of your daily recommended intake, or roughly the same amount nutritionists recommend you consume in 2 entire meals. This comes with 3.5 grams of saturated fat, 18% of the suggested total, and 49 grams of carbohydrates.
What was that? Broccoli! Pah!
On the plus side, there is slightly more fiber here than your average boxed macaroni and cheese, 4 grams per box. Considering all the other nutritional pitfalls though, we'd personally recommend getting that fiber fix elsewhere. While your 10-year-old inner self would like to think otherwise, this is definitely not what your parents had in mind when they told you you need to eat more veggies. The Guinness Black Truffle Macaroni and Cheese combines the same sharp Cabot cheddar cheese, malty stout, and radiatori pasta as the black pepper variety. This time around, however, it throws earthy truffle into the mix to tickle your taste buds while giving your blood pressure a fright.
Those numbers don't lie.
A single serving of the Truffle edition of Guinness macaroni and cheese contains 4.5 grams of saturated fat and 980 milligrams of sodium. As per the American Heart Association, we only actually need 500 milligrams of sodium per day to function properly, putting this at double the amount your body requires. Any single food item containing over 400 milligrams is defined as high in sodium, and should those same items become the norm in your diet, all that extra unnecessary salt can take a toll on your heart health, as well as lead to unexpected issues such as fluid retention. We're sad to report that Great Value doesn't boost its nutritional greatness when it switches pasta shapes. While the Great Value Premium Original Shells and Cheese may be made with real cheddar cheese, something it proudly promotes on the box, each serving is riddled with high amounts of sodium, 900 milligrams, and saturated fat, 3 grams, that warrant it a spot on the unhealthy boxed macaroni and cheese Wall of Fame.
It's the Hall of Fame.
A closer look at the ingredients list brings more cause for concern. Like most highly processed foods, the list is lengthy and contains its fair share of additives. The one that sticks out like a sore thumb is sodium phosphate. Despite being considered safe by the FDA and used as an emulsifier or to balance the pH levels in your food, studies have shown that it can have a damaging impact on those with kidney or cardiovascular diseases. That doesn't make it unsafe for everyone, but it's always best to just be aware of what you're eating. Realistically, there's no world where Cheetos and macaroni and cheese would ever be a healthy combo, but we can dream. The reality is that this macaroni and cheese is one of the worst of the bunch, nutritionally speaking. Each violently orange box of Cheetos mac and cheese Bold and Cheesy contains pasta and powdered cheese flavor, just like the iconic corn puffs, powdered by a questionable array of ingredients, such as the artificial color yellow 6.
Die, die, die!
What has us even more concerned is the fact that this macaroni and cheese contains trans fats. Once prepared, you'll find 1.5 grams of the stuff in every serving. The daily recommended amount of trans fat is none at all, considering its notorious link to an increased risk of heart attacks, strokes, and type 2 diabetes. Worse still is the 4 cheesy variety, where the trans fat content soars to 2 grams per serving. Combine those trans fats with 740 milligrams of sodium, 3.5 grams of saturated fat, and 6 grams of sugar, and you've got a boxed macaroni and cheese that we'd recommend not just eating in moderation, but skipping over in the grocery store completely.